I grew up in a fractured home, though I didn't fully realize how bad it was when I was young. When I was 2, my brother Ethan was born. Like most toddlers, I struggled with suddenly having to share attention. I acted out at first, but my grandparents stepped in and taught me better. Over time, I grew to love my little brother and tried to help take care of him. My mother, however, had already made up her mind about me. She saw me as the difficult child, the one who caused problems. Before long, I was spending most of my time being raised by my grandparents while she focused on her new life. Eventually, our family grew. There were 4 kids in total: Ethan and me from my parents' marriage, and my half-siblings, Lily and Noah, from my mother and my stepfather. My parents divorced, my mother remarried, and life inside that house became tense and unpredictable. By the time I was 13, I had reached the age where kids start forming their own opinions. My stepfather didn't tolerate that. His way of handling it was with violence. Anytime I questioned something or tried to stand up for myself, I got hit. Sometimes it happened right in front of my mother, and she never stepped in. That was when the anger inside me started to grow. I was too young to do anything about it, but I remember thinking that someday I would make them feel even a small piece of what I felt. The house itself was chaotic. My mother and stepfather avoided responsibility whenever they could. Instead, they waited until weekends when my grandparents were away visiting relatives and forced us kids to handle everything around the house. Cleaning, repairs, yard work, things that children shouldn't have been responsible for. I was climbing ladders to clear gutters and cutting branches from trees when I was barely 11. Then came the day everything changed. I was 14 when my mother told Ethan and me to watch our little sister Lily, who was 2 years old. My stepfather was in the living room playing video games while we sat nearby watching. At one point I suddenly asked, "Where's Lily?" The moment those words left my mouth, panic spread through the house. Ethan and I ran from room to room searching for her. My stepfather checked the bedrooms. My dad, who happened to be visiting, ran from the kitchen when he heard the shouting. We searched everywhere. Except the backyard pool. Then we heard my mother scream. We rushed outside and saw Lily lying on the deck, not breathing. My mother and stepfather were trying to perform CPR. My dad quickly pulled Ethan and me back inside while someone called an ambulance. Lily didn't survive. For a long time Ethan and I blamed ourselves. We believed we should have watched her better, should have noticed sooner. Our grandparents tried to reassure us that it wasn't our fault, but guilt like that doesn't disappear easily. Afterward, Child Protective Services got involved. My father fought for custody and argued that my mother couldn't properly care for children. For a short time we stayed with him, but eventually things shifted again and we ended up back under my mother's roof. A few years passed. When I was 18, I was preparing to graduate high school and start figuring out my life. Ethan was 15. Not long before that, he had broken his finger in a fight and needed surgery to repair it with pins and screws. He was prescribed strong pain medication, and my mother was supposed to monitor it carefully. One afternoon my grandfather picked me up from school. The moment I saw his face, I knew something was wrong. When we pulled up to the house, paramedics were wheeling a stretcher out the front door. A body bag lay on top of it. Ethan had died from a drug overdose. My mother had failed to keep track of the medication. That moment shattered what remained of our family. My father blamed her completely, and I agreed with him. Soon after, my younger half-brother Noah was taken by Child Protective Services and placed into foster care. Just like that, I lost 2 siblings, and another disappeared from my life entirely. The anger I had carried for years hardened into something permanent. I continued living with my grandparents. Whenever my mother tried to manipulate them or get what she wanted, I challenged her openly. I made sure she had to fight for every little thing. I wanted her to feel pressure, frustration, anything close to the pain she had caused. Then she slipped at work and badly injured her back. When she came home with pain medication, I began hiding it around the house or throwing it away. I wanted her to suffer. Eventually she was caught driving under the influence of those same medications and ended up spending 6 months in jail. When I heard the news, I smiled. Years passed. I worked, went to college, and saved money while building a future for myself. Meanwhile, my relationship with my mother remained bitter and distant. The final moment came years later. I was 31. My grandfather had passed away the year before, and my grandmother was preparing to move into a retirement home. I had spent years saving money and planning to move to another state to start fresh. One afternoon I was visiting my grandmother when my mother approached me. She asked if I would take care of her after Grandma was gone. She said it was my responsibility as her son. I stood up and looked straight at her. I told her she would get nothing from me. I reminded her of everything, how our family had been destroyed, how my siblings were gone, how the damage she caused had never truly healed. I told her she would never be part of my future, never attend my wedding, never meet any children I might have. Then I told her to stay out of my life forever. My grandmother sat there stunned while my mother broke down crying. For me, that moment felt like the end of a long chapter. My grandmother would soon move into her retirement home, and I would leave the city to start a new life with the woman I loved. But even now, the part that stays with me the most isn't the anger. It's my siblings. Being an older brother was the happiest part of my childhood. Losing them changed everything. Even now, I still think about them, still miss them, and still wish things had been different. If there's one lesson I carry from all of it, it's simple: if you have brothers or sisters, love